I still can't believe I almost walked out without saying thank you. There I was, standing in line at this tiny coffee shop tucked into a corner of the city that I usually avoid because it's so crowded during the morning rush. But that day, I needed a change of scenery, somewhere quieter than my usual spot near the office. What I didn't expect was to meet a complete stranger who'd end up turning my whole day, maybe even more, upside down. So, I'm waiting my turn, scrolling through my phone, half distracted by the guy in front of me ordering 6 different coffees. Like, who needs that many? Then, when it's finally my turn, I place my order. Just a plain, black coffee, nothing fancy. I'm digging through my wallet to grab some cash when the barista says, "Someone just paid for your coffee." I thought I misheard him at first. Paid for my coffee? No one had even spoken to me yet, and I definitely wasn't expecting some random act of kindness. I look around, trying to find who did it. That's when I noticed the guy who ordered all those drinks is watching me, a small, almost shy smile on his face. He's got this kind of effortless style, simple jeans and a soft shirt. Messy hair that looks like it hasn't been styled, but somehow suits him perfectly. He looks to be a few years older than me, maybe late 20s, but there's something about the way he carries himself, calm and a bit intriguing, that pulls me in. Before I can say anything, he steps over and says, "Hey, I'm sorry if this is weird, but I just wanted to do something nice today. Can I join you?" I'm caught off guard. People don't usually offer to sit with strangers in a busy coffee shop, especially not guys who just paid for your drink without a word. I'm standing there, coffee in hand, suddenly feeling like I'm on the spot. I mean, sure, it's just coffee, but something about this moment feels different, like the start of something I didn't know I was missing. I nod, kind of awkwardly, but he doesn't seem to mind. Instead, he pulls over a chair and sits down, like it's the most natural thing in the world. The noise of the coffee shop fades into the background, and for the first time all morning, I'm actually paying attention to the guy sitting across from me. He introduces himself as Jamie, and there's an easy warmth in his voice that makes me want to stay longer, ask questions, really listen. And that's when I realize this isn't just some random act of kindness. It's the start of a story I'm suddenly eager to hear. Jamie smiled and took a sip of his own coffee like we were old friends catching up after a long time, not strangers who'd just met because of a free cup of joe. I found myself relaxing, letting the awkwardness slide off like water. It's weird how sometimes the smallest things, like a stranger paying for your coffee, can crack open a door you didn't even realize was shut. "So what brings you here?" Jamie asked, nodding toward the window where the street bustled with people rushing past, umbrellas bobbing in the drizzle. "Besides this fancy coffee, of course." I laughed, shaking my head. Honestly, I was just tired of my usual place. Needed a change. It's kind of my go-to move when I feel stuck. "You?" He shrugged, but there was a faint smile playing on his lips. "Same, really. I live nearby, but I work from home, so sometimes I just like to get out and feel like I'm in the world, you know? Plus, this place makes the best espresso around." There was something easy about him, no pretense, just that casual openness that makes you want to keep talking. I found myself telling him about my job, graphic design for a small startup, which meant long hours in front of a screen and more caffeine than I care to admit. Jamie listened, nodding along thoughtfully, then shared about his own work as a freelance photographer. "Freelance, huh? That sounds like a dream, and a nightmare rolled into one," I joked. He laughed, a genuine, deep sound that made me smile. "Yeah, it definitely has its ups and downs. I never really know what my day's gonna look like until it starts, but I love the freedom and being able to chase interesting stories and moments through my lens." I found myself leaning in a bit, curious. What kind of stories? Jamie's eyes lit up. People mostly. Faces, places, moments that seem ordinary but tell something deeper. Like this coffee shop here, so many stories happening every day, right under our noses. I glanced around, suddenly noticing the little details. The barista carefully frothing milk, a couple sitting close and whispering, an old man reading a worn-out book. It felt like I was seeing the place through his perspective, noticing the quiet beauty in all the small things. "Sounds pretty poetic," I said with a smile. "Only on good days," he teased. We settled into a comfortable rhythm, talking about everything from favorite music to travel dreams. It was strange, but wonderful. Like connecting with someone who just gets it, without needing to explain too much. At some point, I realized we had been sitting there for over an hour. The rain had stopped, and the light outside had softened into a gentle afternoon glow. Jamie checked his phone and frowned slightly. "Shoot, I forgot I promised to meet a friend soon. But hey, I'm really glad I sat with you today." "Me too," I said honestly. "You just made a boring morning into something." "Not boring at all," he grinned. "Well, I'll take that as a win." Before he stood up, Jamie hesitated for a second, then pulled out a small notebook from his bag. "Hey, if you want, I can give you my number. Maybe next time. Coffee on me?" I felt a little thrill, part surprise, part something else I couldn't quite name. I nodded, trying to play it cool, but probably failing miserably. He scribbled his number and handed me the notebook. "Hope this isn't too forward." "No, not at all," I told him. "Thanks for, just being you." Jamie waved goodbye and stepped out into the now clear afternoon, leaving me there with a coffee cup and a heart that felt a little lighter than before. As I watched him disappear down the street, I thought about how sometimes the best connections come from the simplest moments, like a stranger paying for your coffee, and then sitting down beside you as if it was meant to be. I couldn't wait to see where this would go. Walking out of the coffee shop, I felt this strange mix of excitement and nerves swirling inside me, like I'd just stepped into something new but didn't quite know where it was going yet. I stared down at the little notebook Jamie had handed me, the scrawled numbers and his name. Simple, unassuming, but somehow the most important thing I'd held all day. Back at my apartment, I sat on the couch, the city skyline just starting to light up as the evening crept in. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the keypad, debating whether to text him right away or play it cool and wait. Classic overthinker move, right? But then I remembered how natural it felt to talk to him, how easy it was to share parts of myself without feeling like I was putting on a show. I finally hit send. "Hey, it's me from the coffee shop. Thanks for today. It was nice meeting you." Almost immediately, my phone buzzed. "Hey, I'm glad you texted. Today was really something, huh?" I smiled, feeling a little warmth spread in my chest. We fell into a back and forth that night, swapping stories about our days, sharing little jokes, and slowly peeling back bits of ourselves. It was effortless, like we'd known each other longer than just a few hours. Over the next few days, we texted constantly, sometimes flirty, sometimes just casual. Jamie's photos started showing up in my messages. Stunning shots of city lights, quiet back alleys, moments caught in motion. I told him about my latest design projects, and he'd send encouraging words or suggest little tweaks. It was the kind of connection that sneaks up on you and makes your day better without trying too hard. A few days later, Jamie suggested we meet again, this time at a small art gallery he'd been wanting to check out. I agreed immediately, partly because I was looking forward to spending more time with him, and partly because I was genuinely curious about his world. The gallery was this hidden gem, walls lined with abstract paintings and photographs. Jamie seemed right at home, pointing out details and telling me the stories behind some of the pieces. I could see the passion in his eyes, the way he connected with art like it was a language he spoke fluently. He stopped in front of one photo, a black and white shot of a crowded subway car, faces frozen in motion but somehow alive. "This one's my favorite," he said softly. "It's about isolation in a crowd, like everyone's connected but also completely alone." I looked at the photo, then back at him. "Kind of like how I felt before I met you today?" He smiled, a little shy this time. "Yeah, maybe." We wandered through the gallery, the conversation flowing easily. At some point, our hands brushed, and instead of pulling away, I found myself holding his fingers gently. It felt natural, like this was supposed to happen. After the gallery, we grabbed dinner at a nearby diner. Nothing fancy, just burgers and fries, but it felt special because we were together. We talked about everything and nothing, sharing hopes and fears in the soft glow of the neon sign outside. As the night grew late, Jamie turned to me and said, "I'm really glad I paid for that coffee. Otherwise, I might never have had the chance to meet you." I laughed, heart pounding. "Yeah, me too." He leaned in closer, and for a moment, the world narrowed down to just us, the buzz of the city fading away. Then softly he kissed me. It was gentle, a question rather than a demand, and I answered without hesitation. When we finally pulled apart, Jamie looked at me with a mix of surprise and happiness. "I wasn't sure you want this." I grinned, feeling a rush of warmth. "I definitely want this." That night, as I lay in bed replaying everything, I realized how unpredictable life could be. How a simple act, a stranger paying for my coffee, had opened the door to something I hadn't dared hope for. And somehow, that felt like the best kind of beginning. The days that followed felt like living in a slightly brighter world. I kept thinking about that kiss, the way Jamie's lips felt against mine, tentative but full of promise. It wasn't some wild spark that set everything on fire. It was quieter, more honest, like something I didn't realize I needed until it happened. We started seeing each other more often, keeping it casual at first. Coffee dates turned into long walks through the park, afternoons spent at bookstores, and late-night talks on my tiny balcony overlooking the city. I loved how Jamie was patient, never rushing, always letting things unfold naturally. It made me feel comfortable enough to let my guard down, something I hadn't done in a long time. One chilly Saturday, Jamie invited me over to his place for dinner. I was nervous. Most of my past relationships fizzled before reaching this point, either because I was scared or because I wasn't sure what I wanted. But with Jamie, it felt different. Exciting, but safe. His apartment was small but cozy, filled with framed photographs and scattered camera gear. He had this old record player in the corner, and soft jazz filled the room as he cooked. I helped by chopping vegetables, and we laughed when I nearly sliced my finger. Over dinner, the conversation drifted to family. I told him about my parents, how they were supportive but still a little old-fashioned when it came to dating guys. Jamie shared his own story about growing up in a quiet town where he'd always felt like the odd one out. "I was scared for a long time," he admitted, pouring us another glass of wine. "Scared of what people would think, scared of not fitting in anywhere." I nodded, feeling a pang of recognition. "Yeah, me too." It's like you carry this weight around even when no one's looking. Jamie reached across the table, his hand warm over mine. But then you find someone who makes that weight lighter, someone who doesn't care about all the noise outside. I squeezed his hand, heart thudding. "I think I've found that with you." He smiled, eyes shining. "Good, because I'm not planning on letting you go anytime soon." That night, after he walked me to the door, I lingered for a moment, not wanting the evening to end. Jamie pulled me in for a hug that felt like home, and I whispered, "I'm really glad you paid for my coffee that day." He laughed softly. "Me too." But as much as things felt right, there was this quiet voice in the back of my mind reminding me that real life wasn't always this perfect. Work got hectic, and sometimes Jamie's unpredictable schedule made it hard to sync. We had moments of frustration, missed calls, canceled plans, and I started realizing that navigating this new relationship was going to take more than just good vibes. One night, after a particularly long day at the office, I found myself scrolling through our messages, wondering if Jamie was feeling the same way. I wasn't ready to lose what we had, but I also didn't want us to get lost in the chaos. I called him, and after a few rings, he picked up. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey yourself." "Everything okay?" I hesitated. "Yeah, just missing you, and maybe a little scared this is all moving too fast." There was a pause. Then Jamie's voice softened. "I get that. I've been thinking about it too, but I want to make this work. If you're willing to stick it out, so am I." Relief washed over me. "I want that. I want you." We talked for a while after that, making plans to carve out more time for each other, promising to be honest when things got tough. Weeks turned into months, and with every date, every shared secret, every quiet moment, we built something I'd never thought possible. A real partnership. One rainy evening, as we sat curled up on my couch watching an old movie, Jamie looked over and said, "You know, you're the best thing that came out of a stranger paying for someone else's coffee." I laughed, pulling him closer. "Don't get too tooly." He grinned. Too late. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes the most unexpected kindnesses lead to the most beautiful stories, ones you never see coming, but end up changing everything. As cozy as those nights on the couch were, life outside our little bubble kept nudging in, reminding me that things weren't always as simple as a warm hug and good conversation. Jamie's freelance work meant his schedule was unpredictable. Sometimes he was gone for days chasing a story or shooting a project, and I was stuck trying not to overthink the silence. One morning, I woke up to a message from him. Coffee shop meetup? Need a break from editing. I smiled, grateful for the chance to see him. We met at the same coffee shop where it all began, the place that had become a sort of unofficial headquarters for us. That day, Jamie looked a bit more tired than usual, dark circles under his eyes, but he still had that easy grin. Long night? I asked as we settled into our usual booth. Yeah, he sighed. Deadline's looming, and I'm running low on inspiration. I reached across the table, my fingers brushing his. Tell me about it. Maybe I can help. He looked at me, surprised but appreciative. You always know how to make things better. We spent the next hour talking about his project, a photo essay on overlooked neighborhoods in the city, capturing stories that didn't usually make the headlines. Hearing him describe the people he'd met, the moments he'd witnessed, I realized how much this work meant to him. But it's exhausting, he admitted. Trying to find the beauty in hardship without exploiting it. It weighs on me. I nodded, understanding that Jamie's passion came with a heavy emotional toll. You don't have to carry it all alone, I said quietly. I'm here. He smiled, and it was like a weight lifted off his shoulders for a moment. Thanks, that means a lot. Days later, I found myself sitting in a small gallery opening where Jamie's photos were being showcased. The walls were lined with his work, intimate portraits, candid street scenes, moments of quiet resilience. Seeing his vision come to life in that space, I felt a swell of pride, but there was also a vulnerability in showing his work to the world, a risk he was willing to take. After the crowd thinned, we stood together, his hand in mine, and I realized how deeply connected I felt, not just to him as a person, but to his art, his struggles, his dreams. Our relationship wasn't perfect. There were days when the distance between us, both physical and emotional, felt too big to bridge. Arguments over missed plans, fears about the future, the challenge of balancing ambition with togetherness. But each time, we came back, choosing to figure it out rather than give up. One evening, after a fight that left us both frustrated and exhausted, Jamie surprised me by showing up at my door with a single, slightly wilted daisy and an awkward grin. I'm sorry, he said simply. I don't always have the right words, but I want to keep trying, with you. I took the flower, the gesture softening the tension between us. Me too. That night, we talked for hours, not trying to fix everything at once, but just listening, really listening. It was messy and honest and real. Months into our relationship, Jamie invited me to join him on a trip out of the city to a quiet coastal town where he was photographing a small festival. It was the first time we'd spent more than a day together away from the usual distractions, and it felt like a turning point. We wandered the cobblestone streets, shared meals in tiny cafes, and stayed up late, watching stars and talking about what we wanted from life. I saw a side of Jamie that was relaxed and carefree, away from the pressures of work and city life. One afternoon, as we stood watching the ocean waves crash against the rocks, Jamie took my hand and said, I don't want this to be just a chapter. I want to write the whole story with you. I looked into his eyes, feeling a surge of emotion. Me too. It wasn't a dramatic declaration or a grand gesture, just two people standing together, ready to face whatever came next. Back home, as we unpacked and settled back into our routines, I realized how much I'd grown, not just because of Jamie, but with him. He had shown me what it meant to be vulnerable, to trust, to love, without holding back. The stranger who paid for my coffee had become so much more, a partner, a friend, the person who made ordinary days feel extraordinary. And honestly, I can't wait to see where this story goes next. Life, as it tends to do, didn't slow down just because I was finally in a place where I felt something real with Jamie. If anything, things got more complicated, more intense, in all the best and hardest ways. Our relationship wasn't this smooth, straight road. It was more like a series of winding paths, sometimes steep, sometimes dizzying, but always worth the climb. A few weeks after that trip to the coast, I got hit with a curveball at work. My company was going through some restructuring, and my position was on the chopping block. Finding out you're suddenly unemployed is never easy, but doing it while you're falling for someone, trying to build a life, adds this extra layer of anxiety. I didn't want to worry Jamie or drag him down, so I kept it to myself for a few days. But, of course, secrets don't stay hidden for long when you live with someone. One evening, Jamie caught me staring blankly at my laptop, the job search tabs open but untouched. "Hey," he said, sliding onto the couch beside me. "Talk to me," I sighed, feeling the weight of it all pressed down. "Lost my job." Jamie didn't say anything for a moment, just reached out and took my hand. "We'll figure this out. Together." His confidence steadied me in a way I didn't expect. We spent the next few days mapping out a plan. Budgeting, networking, polishing resumes. Jamie even offered to let me bounce design ideas off him, which I took as a sign he believed in me, even when I was struggling to believe in myself. Our late-night talks took on a new tone, hope mingled with fear, excitement tangled with uncertainty. But having someone there who refused to give up on me made all the difference. Around the same time, Jamie was juggling his own challenges. A major client delayed payments, which threw his freelance work into a financial crunch. Suddenly, we were both navigating storms, trying not to let the waves pull us under. One night, after a long day of rejections and setbacks, I came home feeling drained. Jamie was already there, cooking dinner, the kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and herbs. "Rough day?" he asked, not looking up from the stove. I nodded, collapsing into a chair. "You have no idea," he smiled gently. "Well, bad days don't last forever." As we ate, we talked about our fears, not just about money or work, but about what it all meant for us. Would we still have space to grow together? Could we hold on when everything felt so fragile? Jamie reached across the table, his hand finding mine. "I don't want to pretend it's easy, but I want you, even when it's hard." That night, lying tangled in his arms, I realized that love isn't just about the good times. It's about sticking around when things get messy like life can be. Months went by. I finally landed a new job at a small design firm, which wasn't my dream gig, but it gave me stability. Jamie's client situation improved too, and slowly, we began to breathe a little easier. But something else was shifting between us. This deeper understanding, a connection that felt less like infatuation and more like partnership. We started dreaming about the future, cautiously at first. Then, with growing excitement, one rainy Sunday, we found ourselves curled up on the couch, Jamie scrolling through travel blogs and me flipping through apartment listings. "What if we moved in together?" he said suddenly, eyes flicking up to meet mine. I blinked, surprised, but honestly, the idea thrilled me. "Yeah? You think we're ready?" He shrugged, grinning. "I think we've earned it." The thought of waking up next to him every day, sharing a space that was ours, made my heart race. But it also scared me. Mixing lives is a big step, especially when both of us had scars and fears we were still learning to navigate. Still, the more we talked about it, the more it felt right. We spent weeks hunting for a place, debating neighborhoods, imagining how we'd set up the living room, or whose turn it would be to do the dishes. It was a dance of compromise and discovery, laughter and occasional bumps. Finally, we found a small apartment with big windows and a tiny balcony overlooking the city park. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like a fresh start. Moving day was chaotic. Boxes everywhere, some arguments over where to put furniture, and a lot of pizza. But when we finally flopped onto the couch, exhausted and covered in dust, Jamie turned to me and said, "Welcome home." I smiled, feeling a swell of something I hadn't felt in a long time, belonging. That night, as we lay in the dark, the city lights casting shadows on the walls, Jamie whispered, "I'm glad that day you stood next to me in line. Best random thing that ever happened." I reached out, fingers brushing his cheek. Me too. Here's to whatever comes next. And honestly, after all the twists and turns, the uncertainty and the hope, I was ready for whatever that next chapter might hold. With him by my side, settling into our new apartment felt like the closing of one chapter and the start of another. Quiet, steady, and somehow exactly what I needed. Sharing space with Jamie wasn't always easy. We bumped into each other's habits, argued over who left the dishes undone, and occasionally needed a little breathing room. But those moments didn't overshadow the warmth that filled the place. The laughter, the small rituals we created, the way our lives started to feel woven together. One evening, a few months after the move, we sat on that tiny balcony with cups of cheap wine, watching the city lights flicker on. The air was crisp, the kind of cool that makes you pull your jacket tighter around you, but neither of us wanted to go inside. Jamie looked over at me, his expression soft and open. Remember when you said you almost walked out without saying thank you that day at the coffee shop? I smiled, the memory still vivid. Yeah, I was so distracted by the chaos of the city, I didn't see how much that small moment would change everything. He reached for my hand, fingers intertwining with mine. Sometimes the smallest gestures make the biggest difference. I squeezed his hand back, feeling a quiet kind of joy in that simplicity. You made me believe in something I didn't think I was ready for. Jamie shrugged, a shy grin tugging at his lips. I think you made me better too. We sat there for a while, just breathing in the city's hum and the comfort of being together. No grand declarations, no fireworks, just two people who'd found something worth holding on to in a world that often felt rushed and uncertain. Looking back, it wasn't the big dramatic moments that defined us. It was the everyday kindness, the shared struggles, the slow unraveling of walls we never thought we'd let down. It was knowing that, come what may, we'd face it side by side, and maybe that's what love really is. Not a perfect story, but a series of imperfect moments that, when pieced together, create something unexpectedly beautiful. As the night deepened, I leaned my head on Jamie's shoulder, feeling grateful for the stranger who paid for my coffee that day, the stranger who became so much more. In that quiet, ordinary moment, I knew we were exactly where we were supposed to be,